Good morning, everyone. Guys, I want to talk about what's been happening in the Middle East, and I want to talk about the retaliatory strikes that Israel could do towards Iran. Now, the Israelis, they've came out, they said they're going to do this strike, so it's pretty much a given that it is going to happen at some point. There's a lot of people saying, when is it going to come? Is it going to come now? Is it going to come later? What I would always say is bad things happen on Friday. The Israelis said they need a couple of days to identify the targets. It's Friday tomorrow. It will be highly likely if the strike came tomorrow. Now, there's three main areas that the Israelis could strike. Now, we'll talk about what I feel is the most unlikely. The most unlikely for me is that they go for the nuclear facilities. I don't see any. Four actually. There's four locations that they could go for. So the nuclear facilities are the least likely, in my opinion. That's because where do you go from that? What is the follow-on from that? What do you achieve from that? And what are your strategic goals? It's more than likely that the Iranians are already getting nuclear material, nuclear systems, nuclear scientists, and nuclear academic help from the Russians. So at this point, I don't really feel it's going to make much of a difference taking out any of these nuclear facilities. Then you've got one of the IRGC command centers, but when we're talking about IRGC command centers, which would be the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, they're not taking one of those out. Again, it's not really going to achieve much apart from some rubble in a random place. Yes, it will show that they can target and strike deep into Iran, but on a broader spectrum, it's not really going to achieve anything. So the third option they could go for, which again I feel it not unlike a little bit more likely, but still I feel it relatively unlikely. The Israelis could try and do a drone strike, to try and do a limited, a surgical strike on the Iranian leadership. Again, I think this is unlikely to succeed because of right now, I would suggest that all the Iranian leadership, all the headset, they're all in deep underground military bunkers, and they're all, doing their broadcasts from deep underground. So I don't think even if this could be facilitated, I don't think it could happen. Also, quickly, just shooting back quickly to what about the nuclear facilities. Joe Biden, when asked if he thinks the Israelis, or he was asked if they have permission or something to take out the nuclear facilities, he said no. Now, that's kind of a non-answer. That's in direct conflict to what the House resolution that was passed in November 23, which clearly states that under no circumstances must Iran obtain a nuclear weapon, and that the United States would take all necessary steps to ensure this doesn't happen, and that the United States would support any allies that are trying to take out their nuclear facilities. So I'll put the link to that in the description, guys. So that's kind of at odds with their own foreign policy. But, we're seeing this all over the world, slightly going off topic, but we're seeing this all over the world, whereby in the United Kingdom, we're getting David Lammy coming out and saying he supports the arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. And then we're getting the British Prime Minister coming out saying they stand with Israel under. It's just like, it's really weird, isn't it? It's like, the United States, they're putting out this foreign policy legislation that says that, they don't want the Iranians to get a nuclear weapon, and they'll support other countries trying to take out their nuclear weapons. But then in the same context, you're getting Joe Biden saying, no, we're not going to take out their nuclear facilities. Anyway, guys, just, slightly off topic. And then, of course, we're having the same thing in the United Kingdom, whereby Keir Starmer's coming out and saying, we stand by the Israelis, and then David Lammy saying he supports the arrest warrant. So, what is it? Do you support the arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, or do you stand with Israel? Because, you kind of can't have both. That's what, a united country would say, unless David Lammy and Keir Starmer are, of course, they're talking and they're in lockstep and they know what each other's doing. Because the other idea would be neither of them know what each other's doing, and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. But that is a different story. So the more likely response, well, one of the more, and again, obviously nobody knows apart from Mossad or whoever's planning this operation. But what I would say is going to be key is if the Israelis strike the gas oil producing, their energy system, their oil producing facilities, that's going to be key. And especially if they strike those southern regions. So if you think about the Strait of Hormuz, you've got all those gas and oil producing countries. You've got a huge transit, east and west transit route for the large shipping containers, and you've got a lot of petroleum processing facilities. That is also the only region that you could do a ground invasion. If it would have to be an amphibious invasion. So if the Israelis start to target those locations on the south coast of Iran, that's going to be key, and that's going to be a key combat indicator when we're looking at things that could potentially happen in the future. Because like what we've always said, it makes no sense just to do senseless strikes on countries for the sake of it. First of all, it's a waste of your own intelligence, because once you start conducting these strikes, your enemy, they know that you have that in your crosshairs. They know that you've done a detailed analysis on that location. So then they move it, change it, they stop all communications going to that location, and then it's hard to find that location again. So in that context, you've got to look at what the next move is going to be. What's going to be the next move moving forwards? Now, if you've been following my channel, I've said I feel that the United States is going to be dragged into a boots on the ground conflict in Iran. Now, if this happens, that's going to need to go on. I don't see any other way that they can get there other than a conventional amphibious assault. So it will be key to look at where these attacks actually go in to Iran. If they go in all around that south coast, all around those, like I said, I'm not sure the exact locations, but I'm sure there'll be gas oil separation plants. There'll be, petroleum processing plants that then turn the crude oil into, usable petrol, usable diesel. And all those are predominantly on the south coast. If these start getting hit, if the air defenses in and around those locations start getting hit, that will be a precursor for a wider conflict. That will mean that the Israelis are softening those targets. They're softening those targets now. So then, they're already softened for when the ground invasion comes in, or the amphibious invasion moves in. What the Iranians have said, if you strike our gas oil producing our energy structure, they will then start to attack energy, gas oil producing systems all over the Middle East. So what we could actually be sat on now, depending on the Israeli response, is a situation where the oil and gas and petrol and diesel prices absolutely spike. Now, I genuinely don't know why at this point in time, looking at the chaos in the Middle East, I genuinely don't understand why they've not spiked already. But it's going to be key to watch, and I'm going to be really interested in where the Israelis do strike, because anywhere on that south coast, if anything gets taken out on that south coast, you can take that as one of those things sprouting in the weeds. That's going to mean there's going to be a further amphibious assault. Otherwise, why would you do it? There's no further, there's no real significance of doing that, other than if you were softening those targets for a amphibious land assault. Anyway, guys, I'm going to map to grid. I'll get you guys another video later. I'll speak to you soon.